All right, y'all, we live.
All right. That got me hyped, right?
All right,
On a Sunday morning.
I'm Quan Solo.
I'm Purdy P.
We have two special guests in here.
Yes, we do. They are from
Detroit Kids Matter. We have
Dana Peoples.
Oh,
And Lexus Zaydan.
okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, we're excited.
Appreciate it. Okay, y'all can give us like y'all backstories about yourself.
Okay, I'll start. We are both educators. Sorry, I didn't do the point. We're both administrating educators in the city of Detroit. And I say that because we both started out teaching in Detroit, and we're both in administrative roles right now. So we met, how many years ago?
7 years ago.
7 years ago, teaching in Detroit, Voyager Academy, where I still claim 10 years strong. But she came in like a, what is it called? A wrecking ball, okay? And she taught me a lot of things that I didn't learn myself. Being from Wayne State College of Ed, you know, they say you really don't know a lot until you get into it. So I learned, you know, the book part. Yeah. The education piece was great. But as far as experience and my role as an educator, I learned a lot from Lexi. So we developed a very strong relationship from there. We went, you know, some different ways, but we always stayed connected. So if I could picture myself being a business partner, it wouldn't be with anyone other than Lexi. So I'll let her pick it up from there.
So kind. So yeah, I grew up in Dearborn, actually. And like Dana said, I got acquainted with her through teaching. I went to Michigan State, was actually majoring in journalism, switched to communications, and then became part of Teach for America on campus, where I was the campus campaign coordinator, which pushed me towards the direction of teaching. And then ironically got interviewed at a school in Southwest Detroit where my mom grew up. My grandma has a house there. I was basically raised there, and I got placed to teach there, and which is where I met Dana. She was my teaching partner in third grade. We both taught third grade, and I also learned a lot from her. It was my first year teaching. Didn't have a teaching background, and so you guys can imagine that it was really stressful, a lot of late nights, a lot of crying, a lot of making sure that I was showing up for the kids and doing the best that I could do for them. And so just through my experiences and teaching and just getting, having various levels of promotions and becoming an assistant principal, and now overseeing a tutoring program for a charter network in the city of Detroit, Dana and I consistently thought of how we can continuously make an impact outside of the classrooms and the schools that we were that our hands were basically touching. And so that's how we came up with Detroit Kids Matter. It was actually a shirt that I wore about a year ago, and a lot of people inquired about it, and I just actually got into business school at Michigan. And so I think being able to mix my passion of education and children and then learning a lot of the skills that I've learned over the last year, Dana and I have consistently thought of, again, ways that we can make that impact outside of the classroom and the schools that we were acquainted with, and that's how we basically came up with Detroit Kids Matter.
And I'll add, too, we were able to form a partnership with Detroit Heals Detroit, awesome youth-led healing hub in the city of Detroit. And my daughter is a member of Detroit Heals Detroit. So the leader or the founder of the group, she was able to curate an awesome experience for our kids to be able to paint the mural downtown. Oh, okay. So someone else, you know, had the shirts for the kids, and the kids wore the shirts. And from there, the spark just, it grew. And it was like, okay, where can we get these? What's going on? What is this about? So we took that idea and we pretty much ran with it. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or you saw it on the news, but the kids that were down there, including my daughter, shout out to her. Shout out to Ava. They did an amazing job with Hubert Massey putting the mural on Woodward downtown, and from there it ballooned into something amazing.
What year did you start Detroit Kids Matter?
This year.
We've been planning it for quite some time just to execute it really, really well. So it's been in the process since 2020, but we didn't launch it until June, like the end of June, where we started to kind of brand it and promote it and let people know that what they've been asking for is coming live to them. So
it was right after, I think the first, maybe the culminating point was like Juneteenth, the celebration downtown when our kids were able to, reveal the mural to the public, and the news were there. So it was a good point for us to go from there.
So it's just you two who who founded the Detroit Kids Matter.
Yep.
And you did it because of kids in the city.
Kids in the city. I mean, I am a Detroit kid. I've received all of my education from Detroit, from grade school, Bates Academy, Cass Tech, Wayne State. So I'm deep rooted in the city, and just being able to influence the kids the way that we have, and just want to take it a step further, because we know there's only so much you can do within the school walls. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to hit from all angles and just be able to be a point of support for students and families.
So, and I think without making it too political too, just from our experience, there's a lot of people that claim to support the kids, but the support doesn't go directly to our youth. There's a lot of loopholes, I believe, and so for us, it was really motivation to get the opportunity, the monetary money that we're able to provide, the connections that we're able to provide directly into the youth's hands. So we don't go through the loopholes. We connect directly with kids. We connect directly with youth organizations to make sure that whatever it is that we do directly impacts the city, the kids in the city of Detroit.
What ages do you work with?
All. We don't have. We're open to all. Again, we've supported Detroit Heals Detroit, which is they have kids as young as
12. I want to say
12
to 18.
Yep, and as old as 18. We've supported the Minority Freedom Community Fund, which is a fairly new organization as well that has provided COVID relief to families around the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And then we've just continued to build. I know that we just started a partnership with. I think it's Dino
Detroit, the new rock climbing gym in Eastern Market. So we're looking to, gather a group of kids between the ages of 13 to 18 for safety reasons for the rock climbing, but just to have a christening event almost for the rock climbing event, so that our students can understand the benefits of rock climbing. The gentleman who started Dino, he said he did a lot of research as far as how, rock climbing benefits relieving stress and trauma and things like that. So he wanted our kids to have an opportunity to see what it's like, if they haven't already. But we both work in K-12 districts, so on the clock we service all ages of students. So our goal is to reach all ages of students if we can.
For what subject did you all teach when you were teachers?
I'm a math person at my core. My undergrad is in math. My graduate degree is in English, or reading, language, and literature. So I've been a teacher of all subjects, and I've done intervention in both math and reading, but I would say I'm the math person.
I would say I taught the subject of life. As a teacher, especially in Detroit, you build different connections with kids that I feel like you can't find anywhere else. So the technical answers, I've taught all subjects. Math is also my specialty. I've always been a really strong math person. But what I've definitely learned, and which is why I've continued my career. You said you're not a math person?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's like you are,
I'm a math person until like sixth grade math, and it's like foreign to me. I can't do it. But yeah, I think one of the reasons why I stayed in Detroit was just because of this like different experience. Even talking with other educators around the city, around the country, you just build like a relationship with the kids and the families that I believe you can't find anywhere else. And so I say I taught the subject of life because you just like, you wake up, you come in the morning, you have conversations with the kids, how'd their day go, how are they feeling? They teach you things that you have never learned. You teach them things that they've never learned. And so just a different experience.
To build on that, I think when you go in, you teach whatever they want you to teach pretty much, because sometimes you're in that position where, okay, we need you in this position. Even as an administrator, I'm in classrooms. I would much rather go into a classroom and teach sometimes than administrate, but administrate is a word, yes. Okay.
But not, it is today.
Right, it is today. So I would, that having that opportunity to jump in and be in front of the kids, even virtually, I've subbed a couple times this year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I really miss this, because I've been out of the classroom for 5 years now. I taught for my first 5 years, then I did some intervention for a couple years, and then I've been an administrator for 3 years. So just that relationship that you build with kids is like nothing else compares to that. And I think when I think about my life and what I would be doing if I was not working with kids, I'm drawing a blank, because kids are life, and kids keep you young. Studies show kids keep you young and active, and your brain working, and thinking of new things. So when we started this, it's just we wanted to do this much, or we're going to do this much but we're still, in those formative stages. So right now we're thinking of different partnerships we can, acquire, who we can work with, who we can tutor. Like, I'm taking on as much as I can, still having, a child in the household to take care of, but just knowing that, like, there's so many, students who need us. So our goal is to develop those partnerships, bring in volunteers, and we've already had people, request to volunteer or ask, can they help us with this or that? Because, everyone knows how much our kids need us, especially in Detroit.
I'll volunteer. Hit me up.
All right. Y'all heard that.
You're on our list. Can't back out now.
Add Quan to the list.
Add me to the list.
I help as well.
All right. Okay.
We got
Love the cheering.
We got 3.
She's still a kid herself.
Hey, we need those too. I'm signing my baby up for everything. She's about to start tutoring soon because we need to apply these skills now. We do. These leadership skills, they need to happen ASAP.
So what made you want to teach? What, you wanted to be a teacher since you were a child, or?
I'm going to be 100% honest. As a child, I saw myself as like a nurse, doctor. You know how all kids are like, I want to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, I said, well, maybe a nurse, because I really don't want to, get too deep into it. And I honestly started at Wayne State, and I signed up for the nursing program. And then when I started to think about it, my mom was like, well, Dana, you're going to have to, give shots and take blood. And as a kid, that was something that could not happen for me. Like, you literally had to have 8 people tie me down to a table. So I rethought my major, changed it to teaching, and I thought about it. It was a decision I put a lot of thought into. And when I think back on my education, namely Bates Academy, Cass Tech, I had some awesome educators, and they made me really love that relationship to have with someone someone who was not my parent, but kind of my parent, and just to show me how much they cared for me and how much they cared about my future, and just my experience in education as a whole. As a kid, I loved it. I loved going to school. I looked forward to being there because I knew there were adults there who cared about me being there, and if I wasn't there, they cared. So I wanted to be able to have that same kind of relationship with my students, and working for a K-12 and being able to see students I taught graduate from high school. I just saw a kid today who just happened to be a security guard at her building who went to our school, and it was just like, you never know how many connections you really have and how many people you really affect until you're just walking down the street and you hear Miss Peebles. And I'm like, who in the... I was like, oh, hey. So it's just like being able to see my kids who I've helped curate and, grow into adults, seeing them be successful. There's nothing else that I could equate to that.
I would say for me, as cliche as it is, I feel like I've always been a nurturer ever since I was really, really little. I went to Michigan State with the intent of getting my journalism degree, and I wanted to, I picture myself being on a news station and being really cool. But it wasn't like morally satisfying. And it wasn't until I joined a group called Destination Detroit. I was the vice president of the group, actually. And the group was a student-led group on campus that was meant to build bridges between different student groups. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we planned a trip once a month to the city of Detroit, where we would pick a school, like an elementary school in the city, and we'd do some really fun science project with the kids, and then we would explore Detroit with the students or with the groups after. And that's kind of really what opened my mind to this idea of teaching and letting that be fulfilling in the sense where I always think sometimes about, because the unfortunate reality is sometimes education and teaching doesn't give you the money that's necessary to live a life for your kids and your family. That's, teachers are just shortchanged. That's the reality of the country, and it's very unfortunate. And so sometimes there are thoughts that I'd have of, okay, maybe I can go the corporate route. I'd make enough money. I have the skills for it. But I feel like I would be morally bankrupt in the sense that I would not feel fulfilled with the connections that I have with my kids. And so what initially drove me was just this idea that I wanted to give back to the city. I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to do more. That was and be a part of something that was bigger than myself. And what continued to drive me till this day, I think, is those connections that I built that Dana was talking about. Also, when I'm out in public and I see my kids, Miss Ann, and they're screaming, they see you, and they're like, "You're at a restaurant." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm human. I'm not." We leave the school building. I have a house. I go to restaurants. But it's those connections that I've built that has continued to drive me through this journey of being revolutionary in the realm of education.
That made sense though, because I had one of my teachers came to my wedding, and she was crying.
It's great, yeah.
And I didn't get it at first.
Yep.
Because, I understand now what you just said, a connection. She saw me as a child, and now I'm an adult.
Yep. Plus, somebody's going to have to take care of us, at some point, because we're going to get old. And, you know, my favorite song when I was a child was The Greatest Love of All. And it was just like, you know, the children are our future, teach them well, let them lead the way. So my goal is to, you know, teach our kids something that they may miss somewhere else, you know, by no means of, you know, no purposeful, you know, omission of anything. But, you know, sometimes our kids miss certain things in certain places. So we just want to be that middle point where students can get that extra piece that they may need, that extra point of community to help build strength within our neighborhoods and amongst our kids. So, yeah, one day we're going to be old and we're going to need these kids to
take care of us.
Take care of us.
Let me think of one question. Well, y'all kind of brought it up, but how do y'all feel about teacher pay? Well, I know you said something about that a little bit, but I know that's
I think they're short. Teachers are shortchanged. I think the pandemic really has shed light on the what's the word? The deficit? Power, the necessity of teachers, how important they are, how essential they are. I think that because I always think about teaching as like a stapled profession where like it's necessary, right? We have to have it. And because we have to have it, there's a lot of power and control that's not within the hands of like teachers or administrators, but like powers that be that we necessarily can't control, that make decisions where it's like, well, this is something we need. People are going to do it. This is what we're going to like cap the pay at. We always oftentimes hear, oh, you guys have summers off, you have winters off, but until you're in the groundwork and until you're doing that, the daily work and you're planning, time off really doesn't exist. There's like, when I'm home on the weekends, I'm pulling out my planner, I'm looking at what it is that I need to do to prepare for that following week. Again, all in the, making sure that things are prepared for the kids, making sure that we're ready for the kids, and all of it is for the kids. So again, the unfortunate reality is like a lot of people who join the profession, I feel like are, again, just like morally good people that want to do right by kids. Yeah. And so as much as we know that the pay is crappy, we still do the work to the best of our ability because we know that our babies need us. And so I don't know if Dana has anything to add about this specific topic, but I think we're shortchanged, and that's as simple as I can put it.
I've definitely learned a lot as a teacher, going from a teacher to an interventionist to an administrator, and I think it wasn't until my third year as a teacher. Just to backtrack a little bit, going from my previous profession into teaching, I was working several jobs. I worked at the casino, I worked at the bank, I was a server at Starters. I was just doing whatever I had to
Starters?
do. Well, Fairlane mostly. I worked at Plymouth for like a tiny bit, but Plymouth, I got.
Hey, in our hood, that's Benihana's.
Okay, listen, I got some connections over there still. I told Bob if he ever needs me to come back, I'll come back if he need me to on the weekend. But
get that little room in the back, bro. Use the man.
We're not going to talk about that in the background. We got to keep Detroit kids. My shirt doesn't say that, but Detroit kids at the forefront. But coming from what I was doing into education, it was a big jump from what I was making. And I was used to living on that. And then I taught for a few years. And then after a few years, it was like, okay, what's next? And I had never been put in a position where I had to ask for more money, because if you don't ask, no one's going to volunteer and say, I see you doing such a great job, I'm going to throw you an extra. And it was like every year you got that letter, and it was like, you either going to sign it or you not. So it wasn't until my first few years where I don't even remember who told me. It could have been you. It may have been you.
May have been me.
May have been you. But it was a voice from someone that said, ask for more. You deserve more. We are working. You know what I'm saying? It's like people think of teachers like, oh, we could just get another one. But you can't replace a good teacher.
Absolutely.
You can't. So once I got into that mindset, like I'm doing X, Y, Z. And it was like, think about what you're doing. And I was like, you know what? I made a list of all the things that I did that I knew were powerful in my position. Mm-hmm. And it made me comfortable with asking for more. And since then, every year, I'm, putting that out there, like, okay, I did X, Y, Z. What can I do here? And so I think when we think of the lifespan of a teacher, not lifespan, it's probably not good. That's not.
I know what you mean, though.
But thinking about education on a scale, you think, okay, my end goal is to be a principal. No, not that's not what I wanted to do, unfortunately. But if you want the money, that's where you typically need to go to. But I say all that to say this. I have this picture in my brain, And I want to say I saw it on the side of a bus more recently, and it was like, without teachers, there would be no doctors, lawyers, pro ball players. So, like, we are the foundation. So it just seems like you would want to put as much money as you can into the people who are curating these other people who are going to make these, publicized, monumental actions that are like that you see in the news, and you don't see teachers publicized, but you do see the influential doctors and the pro sports players and the lawyers, but the teachers are kind of on the back burner a little bit. So I do think teachers are cheated, and I do think we definitely deserve more.
And if I can add to that too, I think that there's a larger issue when it comes to teacher pay and the impact that it has on the kids, essentially with like teacher turnover. And then also an even bigger deficit is like getting black male teachers into the classroom. We know that males are usually the sole person that provides income into a household, and it unfortunately drives a lot of our male educators or very or males that could be very powerful educators in the classroom. It drives them away from the profession because they know that they can't make the money and be a provider for their household. And I think in addition to that, we see such crazy turnover. And I don't want to speak for other districts or other communities because I've never been in that seat or in that position, so I don't want to put a voice where I've never been. But I think just the pay and the the benefits, the pay, the issues that teachers are facing kind of speaks to a larger systemic issue that when it comes to like teaching in Detroit, and also this like contributing to the idea of like Detroit Kids Matter. I know that Dana and I were talking today about hey, we haven't heard it yet because it's about kids, but what if somebody says, well, all kids matter? And it kind of goes back to this idea that, like, of course, all kids matter. But for us, the question that we would ask anybody is, if you could pick a district to put your kid in, would you put them in the Detroit Public School District? And if your answer is no, then Detroit Kids Matter, because the unfortunate reality is they've been shortchanged. Teachers have been shortchanged, We also, want to create a platform for teachers to know that they matter and that we care about them, and that if their mental well-being is not put at the all-time high, which again includes pay, salary, that's like a psychological need, right? If we're not giving people enough money to buy a home, if we're not giving people enough money to feed their families, then they're going to come into the classrooms and they're not going to provide for our kids. And so I think that concept of pay is such a crazy topic that's not talked about enough, that has so many layers, domino effects that ultimately impact the kids. I always thought they did it
to weed out people that didn't really want to be teachers. But that make more sense what y'all say. Mm-hmm. If you're not fully, if you can't take care of what you got to take care of, it's hard to come in the classroom